You have spoken about addiction and trauma and intergenerational pain. How do you navigate telling these truths while also offering hope to the people who are receiving the information? And how do you take care of yourself when you're navigating some of those difficult truths as well?
My first book, I wrote that first draft in my 20s. I can't remember who said it now, but they said, you have to learn how to write from the scar and not the wound. And I wrote my first 100 pages of my first book from the wound, my bleeding wound. And
Right.
I was the victim. I was the hero in the story. I did nothing wrong. Everything was done to me, and this was my life. And look at me now. I made it, and I'm alive. That type of thinking was where I was. And I don't think that book would have sold. But I learned and healed and got sober and felt my feelings and stopped criticizing, condemning, and complaining about everything. And I started to take accountability for a lot of ways that I was behaving as an adult in this life, in this moment. I didn't have to take accountability for the bad things that happened to me because it wasn't my fault. But I did have to learn how to be accountable to myself in this life today because that's not me anymore. That's not my life anymore. That's not happening to me anymore. But I kept acting like it was still happening and I was still in that space. And so I was staying a victim because I didn't know, I didn't want to feel. And feelings are the things you need to do. Feeling is what you have to do to heal. It's written, in neuroscience books. It when you talk about the brain and what you need to heal and how you need to heal from trauma, there's certain things you have to do to help heal the chemicals in your brain from trauma. And as long as you put that wall up and pretend everything's okay, like nothing ever happened, and I'm strong and I'm not going to cry about it. I don't want to, I don't want them to think that, they got to me, so I'm not going to cry. I'm going to be strong. As long as we do that, those self-defeating behaviors and that victim mentality will always be there.
Mm.
Whenever something happens and triggers you, you're going to revert back to that behavior and you're going to be dysregulated and people will walk on eggshells around you, and that life is just so exhausting. I know because I was that person, and I know how exhausted people were to be around me, and and I know how exhausted I was to be around my mom, when she was practicing alcoholic. So going through all of that and learning that we have to be able to feel in order to heal. I knew that as I wrote that book, I was going to have to be honest about how I was feeling about things. And if things came up, how my body was responding to that. So I went to ceremony. I would jump in the water, in the ice cold water any time of the year. Um, and I would go to therapy. And I also went to AA, which is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did all of these things during that time, for different parts of me, because rewriting the first 100 pages was the hardest part.
Mm.
And I didn't want to get triggered and write from the wound. I didn't,
Right.
because that would be harmful to people, other people
Mm.
reading it, reading somebody's writing from the wound. And so I prayed a lot, and I did ceremony, and I talked to elders, and I put so much intention into that book that as I was editing it, I was saying that to myself and into that book, that I want people who read this to find it as medicine and not as something that's harming them, and that the people who read it will be helped and not harmed. And I really did that. Like, I was really intentional when I went through the editing process. Like, that first draft was for me. So there was still some anger, still some blame, still some, Do I need to tell that story? Like, do I need to
Right.
tell it in that way? Where is that coming from? Is that an unhealed part of myself that still
Mm,
needs work? And so it was therapy for me to write that book because I was like, hey, that doesn't need to be in there. That's some work I need to do. I don't need to
right.
put it out there like that. Um,
Can we take a moment to just acknowledge how powerful everything you just said is? To be able to, in present day, reflect back to when those wounds were very fresh and you are writing through that pain, through that anger, through that trauma, and through the mindset of a victim. And for you in present day to be able to acknowledge that information and the way that I've told it isn't the thing that would have helped anybody. It's not the thing that would have sold. It's not the thing that would have been received in the way that your present work has been received. I just think that that is such a powerful reflection, and to be able to acknowledge that and move forward from that, I think really is just a testament to the growth that you've experienced and the healing that you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, it it was a journey. It took, it took a long time to get to that space and to be able to write it from there. And I think like once you get there and you've actually done the real work of healing those parts of yourself, that's when the hope comes, right? That's when you can write the hope because you've been through it, you felt it, you've experienced it. If you've not worked through your trauma and you still feel hopeless and helpless and powerless, those are all indicators you're still in your trauma brain. And
Right.
so until you're able to work through that, through feeling it, experiencing it, naming it, then that healing work begins. And then those feelings of hope and what it is and how you feel to let go. So unless you've been through it, you can't write about it.
Thinking about self publishing but not sure where to start? That's where Tellwell Publishing comes in. We offer assisted self publishing services to help you bring your book to life your way. From editing and design to marketing and distribution, Tellwell's team works with you to create a book you'll be proud of while you keep creative control. From Lamar Jackson and Cindy Cherry to Kaya Usher and Rita Kakati Shah, Tellwell has helped thousands of authors publish their book with confidence. Visit tellwellpublishing.com to start your journey.